All right, let's get right into it. So Ilia Topuria vacates the featherweight belt to go get gold at lightweight. He doesn't want to just be the GOAT at featherweight. I think he already thinks he is, so he's going up to lightweight. He wants to capture that gold, that GOAT status in general. So he's leaving the division. And honestly, man, I didn't really want to see that Volkanovski rematch with him. In my mind, I just saw Volkanovski getting KO'd, knocked out again. That's honestly what I thought was going to happen, so I didn't really want to see it. I think if you did want to see that rematch, you probably hate Volk, because, yeah, he probably would have got knocked out. So now we have Diego Lopez stepping in and Volkanovski for the vacant title. And honestly, when I saw this matchup, I was terrified for Volk. Like, I didn't want him to rematch Topuria, but this one, to me, is nearly just as bad. So Volk's coming off after... He's going to be off for a year and 3 months, I think, by the time this fight starts, which is a long time for him. He likes to stay active, and now he's coming back after a long layoff, which was the right move. I mean, he got knocked out twice in a row. The last time he got knocked out was bad. He was folded over. His face was touching his knee. So now he's coming back after that. Like, that's going to be his last memory of being in the octagon, is waking up. So this is tough circumstances for him. He seems motivated, but man, he's still one of the most skilled fighters at featherweight. But sometimes, dude, that just doesn't matter. Like, he's coming in, he's not super dangerous. Like, we know this about Volk. He comes in and he's skilled and he throws out the jab and he switches stances and he's very tricky, man. He's a tricky guy and he has high fight IQ. But when you're going up against someone like Diego Lopez, who isn't as skilled, but he has way more power. He's super dangerous. So this is a really tough matchup for Volk, and I'm nervous for him. I got to say, I'm nervous for him. I am worried that he's going to get knocked out again, and he's going to have to be really smart in this fight. Like, Diego Lopez knocked out Brian Ortega in his last fight. If you go watch it, seriously, he threw a right counter, knocked out Brian Ortega as he was falling, and then he threw a follow-up shot super quickly afterwards, and it woke Brian Ortega back up. He woke up and was back in the fight. And there's one thing you can say about Brian Ortega. He's not the most skilled, he's not the smartest, but he's one of the toughest, and he has a great chin. So to be able to do that to Brian Ortega, he at least dropped him a couple times. That's super impressive, and it just shows that Diego Lopez has tons of power in his hands. So I think Volk's plan going into this fight, it has to be to bring Diego Lopez to the third, fourth, fifth rounds. He has to bring him to the later rounds, because we've seen Diego Lopez tire out. We've seen him gas out before, like in 2 fights ago against Dan Ige. He got gassed out pretty bad in the third round, but Dan Ige took that fight on like a 4-second notice, dude. He got the call, came down to the octagon, weighed in at like 165 pounds and started fighting. So, that's going to help your chin. That's going to help your durability a lot. So I don't really discredit Lopez too much for not having the performance we thought he was going to have. So I'm not going to discredit him too much. But still, we saw him gas out, and we've seen him gas out in previous fights. So I think Volk needs to avoid that danger early. And I think a good way to do that would be for him to leg kick early, try to compromise the leg of Diego Lopez, push him up against the cage, get him in the clinch, try to grapple him there, and maybe try to take him down. That's going to be his path to victory, to wear him out in the early rounds so he can start piecing him up in the later rounds. And I think if he can do that, I do think he will probably just start piecing up Diego Lopez with his combinations. But it's getting to that point that's going to be tough. Going up against Topuria in his last fight, he was able to stick on the outside, throw out his jab, throw out head kicks, throw out leg kicks. He threw out a ton of them, and he was throwing a ton of volume out there. But when you watch that fight, it just looks like he was trying to throw stuff out there to keep Topuria off of him, and he wasn't really inflicting any damage. And Topuria threw a leg kick after Volkanovski was throwing a ton of stuff at him, and it spun Volk around, that one leg kick. So it kind of shows like Topuria was inflicting way more damage from his shots, even though he was throwing less. And Volk just, like, he has to be perfect for the whole fight. He has to be perfect because he can't make a mistake. One mistake against Diego Lopez could lead to getting knocked out. So staying on the outside against Diego Lopez is not going to be an option, I don't think. Diego Lopez is much taller than him. He's has a 5-inch height advantage. I think he has a reach advantage as well. So Volkanovski isn't going to be able to just stick on the outside like he does a lot of the time. He's going to have a different approach. I'm sure his coaches are going to be thinking about this, game planning for him. But we've just seen now, like, people have tons of tape on Volk. People know how to beat him now. They know his weaknesses, and they're going to exploit it. One of those things is the head kick. He got knocked down by Holloway in one of their first fights by a head kick. And Holloway, of course, is the taller guy. We saw Islam, of course, knock him out with a head kick. He was the much taller guy. And now you got Diego Lopez, who is just as tall as Islam Makhachev. He's a tall dude. He's huge for the weight class. Like, go look at him, dude. What a body this guy has. He has a hell of a body on him for 145. I don't know how he makes the weight. He's huge. I think Diego Lopez is going to come in, and I think he's going to go for broke in the first 2 rounds, because that's kind of what he always does. And if Volk can survive, I think he's going to be able to win the later rounds and maybe TKO him in the later rounds. Maybe 4th round or something. I could see that. But here's the thing. Volk is 36 years old, coming off a long layoff, which he doesn't normally do. He likes to fight a couple times, 3 times a year. So he would have that momentum. Now he's coming off a huge layoff. His last memory was getting knocked out in the cage. Like, we've seen it so many times before. These guys who, they're some of the best in the world, they end up getting knocked out. They start losing. And it's like they're just done. Like, they don't have it anymore. It's just father time is undefeated, as they say. I don't like it for him. My prediction in this fight is going to be Diego Lopez knocking out Volkanovski in the first round. And I hate to say it, because Volkanovski has been one of my favorite fighters through the course of his career. But it's probably going to happen. I would love to see Volk win, because I feel like if he wins, he could go on a title run after. Like, you have Movsar Evloev, who would probably get the next shot. I think Volk would have a great chance against him. And then you have, Aljamain Sterling on the come up. Like, Aljamain Sterling couldn't knock out a fly at this point. Like, he has pillow hands. So I think I would love Volk's chances in that fight. And there's a few others that I think he could really go on a title run, like a defense title run afterwards. But if he loses, especially by knockout, he seems like the type of guy that would be like, I still have it. Like, I'm still hungry, man. I want to go out there and get the gold back. But I just don't know if he can do it. And so if he loses by knockout, I don't want to see him go down that Tony Ferguson path of CTE hell, going crazy, still trying to get the belt back. So it's kind of weird. It's like there's 2 paths that he could go down after this. It's super happy and cheery, and he continues his GOAT status, or he goes down a terrible path where he still tries to get the belt back and he keeps getting knocked out. I think his chin was never great to begin with. He had an okay chin, but he wasn't really known for his chin. Like, he would get dropped. He would get rocked by a lot of things. He'd get rocked by, like, Holloway, and Holloway doesn't have that much power. So going up against Diego Lopez, if he makes one mistake and he gets hit by a good shot, I think he's going to go out. I do not trust his chin at all. So yeah, my official prediction is going to be Diego Lopez by first round knockout, as sad as it is. But anyways, who do you guys have winning? Let me know in the comments below. This is my first upload, so please subscribe to the channel. Show a little support. Till next time, peace. God, I'm worried for Volk.